In the 17th century, London pulsed with life. A booming economy attracted newcomers from the countryside and beyond, swelling the city's population to nearly 500,000. Merchants thrived. Trade in commodities like wool and spices flourished, all fueling a vibrant and often chaotic urban landscape. As wealth amassed, so did ambition, a society rife with opportunity, yet riddled with challenges. London emerged as a patchwork of wooden structures, huddled too closely together. These timber-framed buildings, erected without regard for fire safety, stood as both homes and hazards. The narrow streets twisted and turned, barely accommodating the bustling throngs of people, carts, and livestock. A single spark could send this crowded metropolis into a fiery frenzy. Indeed, the air carried the scent of smoke, a reminder of city's volatile nature, but it also crackled with potential. Powerful figures ruled London, but their interests often conflicted. At the helm was King Charles II, a monarch who had recently returned from exile to reclaim his throne after the turmoil of the English Civil War. His rule signified a new era of restoration, but also a deepened reliance on commerce. With the monarchy's needs shaped by wealth, this made the often suspect dealings of London's elite especially crucial. Among these elites were ambitious merchants, positioned to capitalize on both trade and misfortune. The City of London was governed by a mix of local officials known as the Common Council and influential guilds. These entities held sway over civic matters and often prioritized personal gain over the welfare of the populace. Corruption festered. Lords and tradesmen alike entangled their fortunes with practices that lined pockets rather than ensuring safety. As the population exploded, so did the disparity of wealth. The opulence of the wealthy struck stark contrast against the dilapidation suffered by the working class. Many lived in overcrowded tenements where sanitation practices were rudimentary at best. The confluence of wealth and poverty painted a grim picture, fueling resentment among the people. The constant threat of fire loomed as everyone went about their daily lives. With narrow streets lacking proper access for firefighters and authorities, seemingly more occupied with business dealings than safety, the stage was set for disaster. It is within this tinderbox environment that tensions simmered, both among citizens and their rulers. As economic conditions intensified, London danced dangerously close to the edge of chaos. Then came that fateful day in September. The fire that started in Thomas Farriner's bakery at Pudding Lane would expose the city's vulnerabilities. But it wouldn't just lay waste to homes, it also revealed the darker side of those seeking to profit amidst ruin. Greed would intertwine with devastation, as the flames consumed more than just timber. As the fire raged, whispers began to circulate. Who would benefit from the ashes? Who would seize the opportunity to expand their wealth and influence while so many were left homeless? The panic over the inferno grew, but in the shadows, scheming continued. The question on everyone's lips: in a city battered and burned, who would rise from the flames to claim power? The true story of London's reconstruction begins here, and it's laden with unexpected revelations. What sinister alliances would form in the rubble of the Great Fire? On the fateful morning of September 2nd, 1666, a single spark ignited at the bakery of Thomas Farriner on Pudding Lane. It started innocently enough, perhaps a careless ember from the oven. Thomas, like any other baker, started his day early, but as the sun rose, so too did the flames. The bakery, built entirely from timber, became a tinderbox ready to blaze. Fire spread rapidly through the narrow, winding streets of London. Strong winds fueled the inferno, transforming it into a roaring beast that devoured everything in its path. Flames leapt from rooftop to rooftop, the air filled with acrid smoke, chalking thousands as they awakened to the horror unfolding around them. Panic gripped the residents. They grabbed whatever they could, children, valuables, and fled into the streets, leaving behind everything they had known. By midday, the fire had reached Fish Street Hill, and it was clear that the authorities were struggling to contain it. The Lord Mayor of London, Sir Thomas Bloodworth, arrived on the scene only to plead with citizens to help extinguish the flames, a task easier said than done. The city's firefighting methods were primitive at best. Leather buckets filled with water were passed along human chains, but their efforts were futile against the growing inferno. Fire hooks, meant to pull down buildings, fell short as confusion reigned. As the flames raced westward, reaching the Tower of London, the city council debated their next move. But amidst the cacophony, leaders failed to communicate effectively. No organized command existed. Squabbles over property boundaries and the value of lives hindered their response. Wood and thatch roofs had propelled the fire through the tightly packed city. The wealthy often built grand homes, but their construction relied on the same flammable materials that aided the fire's march. The fire raged on, and by September 4th, it consumed the iconic St. Paul's Cathedral, the physical embodiment of hope for the city, laying its stone structure bare to the sky. The clergy and citizens alike could only mourn as the flames reduced their sanctuary to ashes. Over 4 days, the fire laid waste to a staggering 13,200 houses, leaving tens of thousands homeless. The aftermath revealed a stark picture of the city. What remained stood as a testament to the greed and corruption festering amongst its leaders. The opportunistic power players of London, who had once prioritized their profits over public safety, began to take advantage of the chaos. With the city in ruins, they saw not tragedy but opportunity. Land could be bought and sold, plans for real estate could be redrawn. As the embers cooled, their ambitions grew hotter. In the wake of the devastation, the citizens faced a grim reality. The immediate need was survival amidst the ruins. But who would step in to help rebuild? Would the corrupt leaders, who neglected their responsibilities before the fire, emerge as saviors now that the city lay in ashes? As London smoldered, a new chapter awaited, one rife with ambition, corruption, and the unsettling question: in a city reborn from ashes, who would truly benefit from its reconstruction? The Great Fire of 1666 left a city in ruins. By September 6th, the smoldering remains of London told a tragic tale. 3,200 homes gone, churches reduced to ashes, and major structures like St. Paul's Cathedral, once a stunning architectural marvel, now mere memories entombed in rubble. The heart of the city lay exposed, and in the wake of the fire, despair hung heavy in the air. The social fabric of London unraveled almost instantly. Tens of thousands of citizens wandered the streets, disoriented and homeless. Families sought refuge in makeshift camps on the outskirts of the city. The ancient streets, once bustling with life, turned eerily silent, punctuated only by the cries of those who had lost everything. Trade, the lifeblood of the city, ground to a halt. Markets that had thrived were now empty lots. Merchants watched helplessly as their livelihoods turned to smoke. The economic ramifications rippled through every corner of society. Public reaction was swift and filled with fury. The people's panic morphed into despair. Who could they trust? Blame rained down on the authorities and the city of London. Accusations flew like sparks from the lingering embers of the fire. Officials had been warned for years about the dangers of overcrowding and flammable structures, but their inaction only heightened the residents' rage. There was a deep-seated belief that they had failed in their duty to protect the populace, that greed had blinded them to the very real dangers lurking in the heart of the city. Notable figures added to the tempest of emotions. Sir Christopher Wren, the future architect of a rebuilt St. Paul's, pondered the city's fate amidst the devastation. Meanwhile, the common man, consumed by grief, demanded accountability. Who would answer for this disaster? As the ashes settled, the atmosphere was charged with an urgent need for justice and reconstruction. But the question persisted: who would be at the helm? In this fragile period, opportunism emerged like a phoenix from the flames. Some wealthy landowners began to buy up land at drastically reduced prices. Corruption seemed to flourish amid the rubble, with reports surfacing that some in power sought to line their pockets through the rebuilding process. As the populace struggled to survive, these figures facilitated a cycle of exploitation that would come to define the post-fire reconstruction efforts. Frustrated citizens voiced their growing distrust. If the fire exposes their greed, what else does it reveal, they wondered. The social divide widened as the rich benefited from cheap land and reconstruction contracts, while the poor faced the harsh reality of homelessness. As the embers still flickered, the stage was set for a struggle, a battle not merely for survival, but for the soul of the city itself. Would the people unite to reclaim their London, or would they be further consumed by their own discord? The city's future hung in the balance as angelic visions of a rebuilt London conflicted with the grim reality of greedy hands pulling the strings. As plans for rebuilding began to emerge, would the harmony of the past be sacrificed for the avarice of the present? What twists lay ahead in this unfolding blueprint for a new London? In the aftermath of the Great Fire, the landscape of London lay in ruins. But this devastation also paved the way for King Charles II to seize a moment of transformation. With a grand vision for a city reborn from the ashes, he took the lead in the ultimate reconstruction effort. Charles imagined a bustling, modern city, one that would rival the greatest capitals of Europe. He envisioned broad, straight streets, elegant buildings, and public spaces that reflected the glory of the monarchy. Yet, as the initial plans emerged, a darker reality began to unfold beneath the surface. Reconstruction attracted both opportunists and reputable architects alike. Merchants and builders, eager to capitalize on the desperate need for housing and infrastructure, swiftly maneuvered to gain favorable contracts. Corruption seeped into every corner of this rebuilding effort. Some city officials accepted bribes to overlook substandard materials and hastily executed work. As tens of thousands of pounds were poured into the paving of roads and rebuilding of homes, many wondered who truly benefited from this massive expenditure. Instead of long-term prosperity for the common citizen, many of the builders lined their pockets, while residents returned to flimsy structures that were often constructed below safety standards. The wealthy landowners, having purchased plots at cut-rate prices, now held the majority of the city's property. They constructed grand homes for themselves, but often used low-quality materials for the houses of the less fortunate. The stark contrast between the rich and the poor grew more pronounced in the wake of the disaster. As public outrage simmered, reforms began to take shape. The need for a safer city became undeniable. In 1667, an act of parliament mandated the use of brick and stone for new constructions, a significant shift from the timber that had fueled the fire. These new building codes aimed to ensure that such devastation would never happen again. Yet the enforcement of these regulations remained spotty at best, as corruption still tangled itself tightly around the hands of the city's authorities. During this tumultuous rebuilding phase, figures such as Sir Christopher Wren emerged, advocating for a comprehensive redesign of St. Paul's Cathedral, transforming it from just a church into a symbol of resilience. Wren's designs, which incorporated the use of brick and stone, represented a new architectural vision for London. His work became a testament to the city's capacity for renewal, pushing boundaries and redefining beauty even in an age of greed. But amid this promise of a new London, cracks began to show. While grand buildings rose, the needs of the average citizen often fell by the wayside. Reports began circulating about families living in squalor, trapped in a system that favored the wealthy elite. Was the vision of a modern London truly for everyone, or destined to be a playground for the rich? As whispers of discontent grew louder, King Charles II found himself at a crossroads. Could he manage to steer the city toward genuine reform, or would the profits of corruption continue to shape the skyline of London? With tensions rising and city governance under scrutiny, a question loomed large. Would the ashes of the past give rise to a new future, or would greed once again set the city ablaze? Join us next as we uncover the impact of these rebuilding efforts on societal dynamics and explore the lasting legacy of the Great Fire in London's history.